Hello there. So we are going to move into chapter 10 lecture this week, which is weight management and energy balance. This chapter is kind of a longer one, so I apologize for the length of the video today. It might be close to an hour, if not a little bit more, unfortunately. But I also will have you refer to Blackboard to the week 10 folder for reminders about other assignments that are due this week. Things that are different this week. Our second unit exam is going to be due this week, and you can find that in the week 10 folder on Blackboard. The other thing is there is a new assignment for a project, our final project for the semester. It is a diet analysis project that is going to be due at the end of week 12. So in about 2 weeks here, we'll want to see that all finished up. So it's a good idea to take a look at that this week and get started on that process. As always, let me know if you have questions. All right. So we're looking at weight management, all of that stuff. So what is a healthy weight? Definition here is that your body weight relative to your height does not increase the risk of you developing weight-related health problems or diseases. So your weight to height ratio is in an area where statistically speaking, you're not at increased risk of developing things like diabetes and certain types of cancers and those types of things. Weight management is maintaining your weight in a healthy range. Overweight is defined as 10 to 15 pounds more than your healthy weight, and more than 70% of Americans fit in that category. So you're at least 10 to 15 pounds over what your normal healthy weight range would be. Obesity is 25 to 40 pounds more than your healthy weight, and over 40% of Americans are considered obese. And later in the chapter, we'll get into what that means and what kind of leads to that and all of that kind of stuff. So overweight and obesity, again, the reason we're concerned about that is that it increases risk of a number of negative health outcomes. So hypertension or high blood pressure and stroke, heart disease, gallbladder disease, type 2 diabetes, osteoarthritis, which is the wear and tear arthritis. Some types of cancer and sleep apnea are much more common in people who are overweight and obese. And just losing 5 to 10% of your total body weight can produce health benefits like lowering your blood pressure, cholesterol, and your blood glucose levels, which all obviously lower your risk of a number of these various different types of health, negative health outcomes. On the opposite end of the spectrum, underweight is weighing too little for your height. It can be caused by a number of things: excess calorie restriction, too much physical activity, an underlying medical condition, or an emotional stress that leads you to lose your hunger and drive to eat. It also has negative health risks there. It's increased risk for osteoporosis as well as dehydration and electrolyte imbalances and all kinds of things like that. So it's risk for young adults, nutrient deficiencies, electrolyte imbalance, low energy levels, decreased concentration. Those are things that are more likely to happen with younger folks who are underweight, and then older adults, low body protein and low fat stores, depressed immune system, and a number of medical complications. So as we age, we kind of lose our hunger and thirst drive, and a number of things play into that, which we'll talk about in a future chapter where we talk about nutrition throughout our life cycle. Depression and social isolation and stuff that can happen when we're older and unable to get out of the house as much, those kind of play into that risk of becoming underweight, as well as, loss of hunger, being on a fixed income, so not enough money to purchase food, and all of that kind of stuff plays a role there. One of the easiest tools that we use often to determine whether your height and weight ratio are acceptable and in a healthy range is the body mass index, which is where we take your weight in pounds times 703 divided by your height squared in inches. Yeah, so it's a weight to height ratio situation. With BMIs greater than equal to 25 is considered overweight with moderate increased risk of dying from various diseases. And then greater than 30 is considered obese with a 50 to 100% higher risk of dying prematurely compared to those with a healthy weight. Under 18 and a half is considered underweight and can also be unhealthy. Unfortunately, the BMI is not a particularly accurate form of measuring your, your risk of disease. It does not take into account the percentage of body fat that you have. It only takes into account your weight. And remember, muscle weighs more than fat. So those with large muscular builds will often be considered obese using this particular formula. Whereas they are not at an increased risk of developing, all of these weight-related diseases because their bodies are more lean mass, more muscle mass, which is not unhealthy. So it's not particularly accurate, especially for those who have an athletic muscular build. But here is the kind of the BMI chart, so you can kind of look at that. Your weight and your height without shoes, your weight in pounds. It's sort of a healthy weight range in there. All right, so better, more accurate ways of determining if you are at risk of developing diseases due to overweight or obesity would be to measure your body fat and where we have it. So the average healthy adult male has 2 to 24% of the weight being body fat, and females 10 to 30% body fat. So, and this is the average healthy adult male or female. Why females have more body fat is because biologically we are made to carry offspring, to be pregnant, and having extra fat stores is important for that process, kind of biologically speaking, to provide extra energy stores for the purpose of, producing offspring. Different ways that we can measure body fat. We can do a skin fold thickness, bioelectrical impedance. One of those various different tests will help to measure your percentage of body fat. Central obesity, which is sometimes called abdominal adiposity. It's where the location of fat, I guess, is more important than, to some degree, more important than the amount of body fat. So we have fat under our skin, subcutaneous fat, and everybody has that, and that is not unhealthy. But when you have fat in your abdominal cavity around your internal organs, we call that visceral fat. Excess visceral fat increases your risk of these negative health outcomes like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension. And the way that we determine central obesity is to measure your waist circumference. So here's the difference between the two. The person on the left of your screen here has a lot of visceral fat, a lot of fat in the abdominal cavity surrounding the abdominal organs, as well as a fair amount of the subcutaneous fat. So like, excess fat overall, but especially a lot of fat in and around the organs, which increases the risk of a number of different negative health outcomes. All right, here's the skin fold test. We use calipers and they pinch the skin, the thickness of fat located just under the skin, in the arm, in the back, the upper thigh, and the waist area. And from those measurements, you can get a percentage of body fat. Pretty cheap, and it's pretty accurate. The margin of error is like 3 to 4%, so that's not terrible. The bioelectrical impedance, electrical current flows through the body, and the resistance is measured. Fat is resistant to electrical flow. Lean body tissues like muscle would allow it's highly conductive, so it would allow the electrical current to flow through the body more easily. and based on how much resistance there is to the flow, that is how they determine your kind of body fat content or percentage there. Again, fairly cheap and fairly accurate. Other ways we can do it is a DEXA scan, a dual energy X-ray absorptometry, or usually DEXA or DXA. It's used to measure your bone density a lot of times. So it's if you're at risk of osteoporosis, a DEXA scan might be done to determine your bone density. But that's its typical use, but it can also be used to look at fat and lean body tissue as well, and it just uses X-rays to do that. That is much more expensive. Low margin of error between 1% and 4%, so not it's fairly accurate as well. And then we have underwater weighing. So we have somebody, you weigh somebody on land, on dry land, and then also suspended in a water tank. And fat is less dense than and weighs less than muscle. So the difference is there. There's sort of an equation that they do that will help calculate the percentage of body fat based on the difference between the underwater weight and the on dry land weight. And then our last one is using this BOD pod, which obviously if you are at all claustrophobic, that probably would not be the tool for you. You put a person's body volume is determined by measuring air displacement from a chamber that you're in, the BOD pod as it's called, and they can then estimate your body fat percentage from that. And again, more expensive, and all of these methods have a pretty low margin of error. All right, and here's what we were talking about the visceral adiposity, the fat in your abdominal cavity around your organs, higher risks of different diseases if you're a woman and you have a waist circumference greater than 35 inches, or for a man, more than 40 inches. And that is to measure around your actual anatomical waist there. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about energy balance. It's not all that interesting, but and it's fairly self-explanatory, but if you have a positive energy balance, you are bringing in more calories than you are expending, which leads to weight gain and fat storage. No matter where those calories are coming from, they will ultimately be stored as fat. Negative energy balance, more calories expended than consumed, which leads to weight loss. And energy needs differ from person to person. So how do you know how much you should be eating? Well, what we need energy for is for three different things: to power our basic metabolism, our basal metabolic rate. All of the chemical reactions that happen on our cells would be our basal metabolism. The thermic effect of food is the energy it takes to break down and digest our food. And then physical activities, we need energy to power everything else that we do, other than just, powering our chemical reactions in the body and breaking down the food that we eat. The physical activities is on top of that. So the energy needs, about 50 to 70% of your energy needs go to powering your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. The thermal effect of food is about 10%, and then 20 to 35% for the physical activity that we are doing. As I said, the BMR is just enough energy to power our chemical reactions. It's the minimal amount of energy you need for your body to function, just to do the things that keep you alive. Your BMR is different depending on a number of things, but chiefly how much muscle you have. What is your lean body mass? The more lean body mass you have, the higher your basal metabolic rate is going to be, because muscle uses energy. Fat stores energy. So the more muscle you have, the more energy you are burning just to stay alive. Again, the thermic effects of food are the energy you need to digest, absorb, and process what you eat. So roughly about 10% of the calories in food will go toward that. Again, factors affecting our BMR, lean body mass is the major one, your age. We have lower basal metabolic rates as we get older. So younger folks have higher BMR than older folks typically. BMR increases during pregnancy as well. So if you're pregnant, your BMR increases by about 15%. Sex, again, because males typically have larger lean body mass. They have larger bodies and more muscle. Their BMRs would be higher than in females. Body size, larger folks will have higher BMRs. Again, more tissue would be, you need more energy to maintain more tissue in that case. And then genetics. The research suggests that a lot of people within the same families have similar BMRs, similar metabolic rates. What else? Stress. Stress can affect our BMRs as well. Hormones, obviously there are different hormones that affect your basal metabolic rate. Things like thyroid hormone, for example, too much or too little thyroid hormone changes your basal metabolic rate. And then sex hormones in female during fluctuations during women's menstrual cycles can cause raising or lowering of the BMR, particularly before ovulation. The BMR drops a little bit there. Starvation. So you have to eat in order to burn calories. So both starvation and fasting for more than 48 hours lowers your basal metabolic rate. Intermittent fasting is kind of a newer thing that folks are talking a lot about lately. And there's a safe and functional way to do that and to get some good health benefits. But fasting more than 48 hours actually does the opposite of what you want it to do by lowering your basal metabolic rate. Caffeine can slightly raise your BMR, but only a little bit, and only when you're consuming it regularly in moderate amounts. And then drugs. Drugs like nicotine can increase your BMR. Drugs like amphetamines and ephedrine also increase your BMR. Stuff like, cocaine probably can as well. So even though nicotine can increase your BMR, smoking is not a healthy weight management strategy. It used to be a thing that doctors would say, okay, well, if you want to lose weight, like here, have some cigarettes, just, whatever. But smoking is, bad for you, if not worse than being overweight. So you want to make sure that, you don't look at that and go, yeah, cool. Smoking will help me get my weight down. All right. Obviously, we have our basal metabolic rate, the amount of energy we need just to power our bodies to stay alive. Physical activity on top of that increases your energy needs. So people who are sedentary expend less than half of the energy that folks expend when they are active. So being active helps increase your BMR, but it also helps to burn off excess calories as well. Very active athletes can expend twice the BMR. So, it's important. It's an important physical activity is an important weight management strategy. It's a good way to lose weight by becoming more active if you need to do that, but it's also a good way to maintain a healthy weight and, increase your lifespan and increase your health overall. All right, so calculating your energy needs. There is a little kind of annoying mathematical equation on the next couple of slides that can help you, based on your age, your genetic sex, your height, your weight, and your activity level, determine how many calories you actually need in a day to maintain everything as it is currently. So you'll fill this part out. My age is whatever your age is, and then rate your physical activity during the day based on this chart in B. In C, your weight in pounds divided by 2.2 to get your weight in kilograms, your height in inches divided by 39.4 to get your height in meters. And then those numbers you can fill in here for the calculation of your estimated energy requirements in a day. So how many calories do you need in a day to maintain your current level of activity, as well as your current weight and all of that? All right. Energy imbalances over time lead obviously to changes in your body weight. So if you are consuming fewer calories, your body weight drops. If you are consuming too many calories, your body weight might increase. So reducing calories leads to weight loss in the following ways. First of all, we're going to use up our stored glycogen in the liver, and fat. Once we've used a fair amount of the glycogen, we also use fat as a fuel source, which is helpful in lowering our our fat percentage, I guess, as well as losing weight overall. So specifically losing fat. Sometimes we break down amino acids from our body proteins to be used to make glucose. Prolonged fasting can deplete all the liver's glycogen, and then we start to burn fat, but without any glucose or without enough glucose, then we can't completely break down the body's fat, and we end up accumulating ketone bodies, and that can be potentially harmful as well if we end up getting ketoacidosis from that, having too many ketone bodies and so forth. Our fat stores and about 1/3 of lean tissue mass would be depleted in about 60 days. And this is like without calories. This is usually like during prolonged periods of fasting. Obviously, excess calories lead to weight gain, and it does not matter where the calories are coming from. It doesn't matter if you're only eating like rice cakes. If you eat too many calories, more calories than you're burning, any excess calorie from carbohydrate, from protein, and from fat sources will become fat in your body. Because our body has a limited capacity to store glycogen. Anything over the top of what we can store in the form of glycogen gets turned into fat. Extra protein can't be stored in the body, but we do have an unlimited capacity to store fat. So there you go. All right, a number of things will affect our body weight and our weight management. It's complex, and it's going to include what and how often you eat. So hunger and appetite are, I guess, kind of like not exactly the same thing. Appetite is a psychological desire for food. You want food. It doesn't necessarily, your body's not necessarily telling you that you are hungry, that you need to take in calories, but you're thinking, that candy bar sounds really good. So that's part of your appetite. It's a psychological desire for food. Hunger is the physiologic need for food. And after we eat, we start to feel full. We have that the feeling of satiation, which is to basically feel full and not hungry anymore. And the amount of satiety you have determines the length of time between eating episodes. So how full you feel and for how long after you eat is part of satiation and satiety. We have a lot of hormones that play a role in hunger and satiety. Ghrelin is produced by the stomach when it's empty, and it increases hunger. So ghrelin, when you're hungry, your stomach says grr. When your fat stores increase, leptin signals the brain to decrease hunger and food intake. So that's coming from our fat tissue saying, hey, our fat stores are increasing. We don't really need to eat right now. And then another one, cholecystokinin, which is CCK, is released when the stomach is distended, meaning after we eat, and it increases the feelings of satiation and decreases hunger. So ghrelin increases hunger, and the other two, leptin and CCK, decrease hunger. So protein, fatty acids, and monosaccharides or sugar, once those reach the small intestine, those also will stimulate a feedback mechanism to the brain to decrease our hunger because we've just had a meal and we are now starting the process of digestion and absorption of those nutrients. So we've just had a meal, we don't need more food. But a lot of people can just override these normal mechanisms and, end up eating more than they need to, and it results in energy imbalance. And typically it's eating more than they need to meet their physiologic needs. But sometimes folks with disordered eating, which we'll talk about later on, override that in the other way where they're feeling hunger, but they are still not eating. They just kind of consciously override that and ignore the hormonal signals. The part of the brain, this is not as important to me, the part of the brain that really controls and deals with the um, hunger and satiety stuff is mostly in the hypothalamus in the brain. It's kind of where our hunger centers are located. As I said, there's a genetic component to body weight. There's a genetic component to BMR as well. So your risk of becoming obese doubles if your parents are overweight and triples if your parents are obese, and goes up to 5 times greater if your parents are severely obese. And genetics possibly is part of that. Also learned behavior and family recipes and all of that kind of stuff. The way that you eat when you're younger sets kind of your taste for your lifetime. So if your parents are eating excess and potentially feeding you excess and maybe not the right types of food, you learn some of that behavior as well. So there's a learned behavioral component to it. Then there's also a genetic component to it. And the reason that we know that at least part of it is genetics is that they did studies on identical twins that were separated at birth. So these are identical twins that were raised in different families. And even though they are genetically identical to one another, their living environment was different. And these identical twins, even if the families that they were put with were not obese, they still had increased risk of becoming obese if their birth parents were overweight or obese. So, there is definitely a genetic component. There is a nature component above and beyond the nurture component. All right. We also have genetic differences in the level and the function of our hunger and satiety hormones. You can have genetically high ghrelin or low leptin levels that would increase your risk of obesity. You have less ability to feel full and to trigger your brain that says, I am full. A lot of obese people have adequate leptin, but the brain has developed resistance to it. So it's sort of like type 2 diabetes, where the body can produce insulin, but the body becomes resistant to it. All right, we also have differences in our NEAT, genetic differences in non-exercise associated thermogenesis. So it's kind of the energy that we expend in non-exercise type movements. So people who are a little bit more fidgety, standing and chewing gum, there's a genetic difference in the way our bodies work and how much heat we produce, and therefore calories we burn in these different ways. All right, what else do we have? Environmental factors that increase appetite and decrease physical activity. Culturally, we have a lot of things going on where we are becoming more and more obese, and it can't all be explained just by genetics. So environmental factors, um, make it, I guess doubly difficult to maintain a healthy weight. Cheap and easily obtainable energy dense foods stimulate appetite. So that is something where, if the food is cheap, the food is energy dense, meaning it has lots of calories and maybe not a lot of nutrients. that is going to be an interaction between our genes where people might be at higher risk for obesity, and then they have access to, environmentally, they have access to cheap and easily obtainable, super energy dense foods that also make us hungry and stimulate our appetite, and then we continue to overeat and eat too many of those things. Culturally, we eat out a lot more and cook at home less. So 30% of calories come from ready-to-eat foods prepared outside of the home, which is a lot. Used to be a lot less than that. People kind of cooked for themselves a lot more than they went out to eat or got prepackaged foods or fast foods. And frequent dining out is associated with higher BMI. We eat more than we used to. There's increased availability of food service establishments and access to a large variety of foods and larger portions of food, and that encourages people to eat more. So we continually eat more than we are, the calories that we are burning. And we sit more and move less, so we're a lot more sedentary. The average Americans are eating about 375 calories per day more than we were in 1970. And we have all of these like labor saving devices, and we work at home and we sit at a desk, and we have a lot of screen time as far as our leisure activities are concerned. So not only are we eating more, but we're moving less. And that has led to, increased weight gain in a larger population. So how can we lose weight in a healthy manner? Because there's a good way to do things and a bad way to do things. The NIH states that overweight individuals should aim to lose about 10% of your body weight over a 6-month period of time. So if you weigh 180 pounds and that's overweight for your height, you should lose 18 pounds over the course of 6 months, which breaks down to 3 pounds per month, or roughly 3/4 of a pound per week. So if you want to lose a pound of body fat, you need 3,500 fewer calories, or a calorie deficit. And to do that, again, you can eat fewer calories, but you can also exercise more to burn more calories. So to lose a pound of body fat, we need a 3,500 calorie deficit. And if you want to lose about between a half and a pound per week, you should decrease your daily calories by between 250 and 500 calories, which actually really isn't a lot. And again, um, 250 calories less in a day is like maybe not having a candy bar, right? So it's not a lot of calories, or 1 or 2 less slices of pizza, having a salad with your pizza instead of eating, 4 slices of pizza, you eat 2 slices of pizza and a salad. It really doesn't sound like a huge reduction in. Okay, my apologies. My Zoom went offline there for just a second, so I'll get back into this. As I said, I never, people often will ask me, what do I think about this diet or that diet, or is this a good diet? Is that a good diet? And I never will say to you that I endorse a particular fad diet. Fad diets, again, promise dramatic results, but they carry a lot of risks. So for me, the best way, if you're looking to get healthier and lose weight, get more muscle, less body fat, all of that stuff, if you're looking to be healthier and have a healthier diet and have a healthier body and lifestyle, If you want to lose weight, eat fewer calories and exercise more. If you want to gain muscle, exercise, get your muscle built up. And again, that's going to help you burn body weight. So learn better habits, eat healthier foods, eat leaner, more nutrient dense foods. Because that's the only way to eat healthy and to learn and to modify your own behavior and to make that a sustainable, lifelong, healthy pattern in your life. If you do a fad diet and you lose 20 pounds, as soon as you go off the fad diet, the weight comes back because you've not learned the other aspects of it. You haven't learned how to cook for yourself properly. You haven't learned what foods you should and should not eat. You haven't, changed your attitudes or your behaviors or any of that pertaining to food, when we eat, how much we eat, all of that kind of stuff. So it's behavior modification, it's learning, it's eating fewer calories, and it's moving your body more. That's how you should go about losing weight, because it's really the only sustainable way to do so. And that's kind of what this stuff talks about. So eating smart, add foods that lead to better satiation, low calorie meals, including you can have high volumes of healthy foods. Like you can eat more fruits and vegetables and fiber in your diet. They're lower calorie, they add to your satiation. You can eat larger volumes of those foods without adding a bunch of calories to your diet. So it helps you to feel full. You want to have healthy, lean protein and healthy fats. Protein increases satiety the most. Fat slows movement of food from the stomach into the intestines, keeping it full longer and you feeling full longer. But you want to choose the right types of fats. You want to eat our unsaturated fats versus saturated fats, all of that kind of stuff. So physical activity, increase physical activity, eat healthier foods, and modify your behavior. Don't watch TV while you're eating, because then we mindlessly eat. Don't grab a whole bowl of like movie theater popcorn and, just continually pop that into your mouth while you are while you're watching TV. You want to portion out your food. You want to, pay attention to what you're eating, focus on your food, eat slowly, chew your food thoroughly. All of that kind of stuff is part of the behavioral aspect of weight loss. Foods to eat, low energy dense foods, fruits and veggies. They don't provide a huge amount of calories. You can eat high volumes of those. You can eat large quantities of a lot of these things without affecting, negatively impacting the number of calories that you're eating. So low energy dense foods, you get high in fiber, high in water, not a lot of calories per gram of food, things that are really good for you, that have a variety of vitamins and minerals that you need to be healthy. Medium energy density foods would include things like hard-boiled eggs, dried fruits, lean meats, hummus, whole wheat bread, all of that kind of stuff. And these, again, contain a little less water, but still a fair amount of water, some good fiber and things and good protein. High energy density foods, these are the bad ones. These are things that you don't want to eat in high quantities. So low in moisture, high in fats. So chips, cookies, crackers, cakes, pastries, butter, oil, and bacon, all the stuff that tastes good but is not great for you. No one's saying you can never have that, but just try to keep those to a minimum in your diet. So here's some low volume, high calorie stuff on the left, some high volume, low calorie stuff on the right. Again, there's some similarity here. So if you get the Pizza Hut Pepperoni Lovers Pizza, you can have 2 slices and a breadstick for 890 calories. So low volume, high calorie. On the right, a little bit less here, you can have 3 slices of Pizza Hut's Veggie Lover Pizza. skipping the pepperoni and putting some veggies on there, and having a salad along with that. So you're getting a higher volume, but lower calorie, not as energy dense there. My plate has a weight loss guide, so you can use that. Again, higher volumes of fruits, veggies, whole grains, some lean protein, a moderate amount of fat, again, preferably unsaturated fat versus saturated fat. You should get lots of different foods from lots of different food groups, and try to make some replacements in your diet. So higher calorie foods, you can replace them with a lower calorie option from the same food group. So full fat dairy with non-fat dairy products. Instead of drinking soda, drink some water, or you can drink like the zero sugar soda, as long as you keep that to like maybe one soda per day. That shouldn't be too bad for you. And then try to drink more water. Again, moving your body it helps you gain muscle and also lose weight. So 45 minutes per day of moderate intensity activity can prevent people from becoming overweight and or aid in weight loss. So that 10,000 steps per day goal that your Garmin keeps telling you should be hitting, it does reduce your risk of becoming overweight. You're just moving your body more. The more you move, the more calories you burn. And then trying to break bad habits. And this is what we were talking about in terms of the behavioral stuff. Don't mindlessly eat. Keep a food log. Control your portion sizes. Control your environmental cues that trigger eating. Manage your stress in other ways other than eating your feelings. Talk to someone. Talk to a counselor. Go for a walk. Get out in nature. Do some meditation. Help to control your stress in a way that doesn't involve eating food. All right, here's some fun activities that you can do. And approximately for a 154-pound person, approximately how many calories one would burn per hour of these particular activities. So there's a lot of great options there that burn a fair amount of calories. And again, if you're trying to lose weight, and you're trying to lose about a pound a week, doing an hour of these activities once per day is going to be probably adequate to get you to lose between a half and 1 full pound of weight each week. All right. So examining our popular diets, again, the key to losing weight is reducing calories, not necessarily the composition of your diet, but to burn more calories than you're taking in. So people who diligently adhere to the diets lose the most weight. But a lot of these extreme diets, like the Atkins diet or the Ornish diet, people drop out really quickly. They have really high dropout rates because they're not sustainable for the long term. So if a fad diet claims it's carbs, not calories that make you fat, that's something to be aware of. Lose 7 pounds in a week, again, something to be aware of. Miracle weight loss products that a lot of celebrities endorse. Those are, bad, and quote unquote natural substances that help you lose weight without risk. So all of those, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. These are some looking at popular diets and their benefits, their pros, their cons, their examples. The very low calorie diet is not a sustainable type of diet, and it's one that should be overseen by a doctor, by a healthcare professional. And this is for people who are like probably, extremely severely obese. So it's a severe limit of calories, burns fat, reduces body weight. What you can eat, 400 to 800 calories per day of liquids. No, that's not sustainable. That's not, it's not a healthy way to lose weight unless you're seeking to lose a ton of weight. 15 to 20% in 12 to 16 weeks. And again, typically that's for people who are like super morbidly obese. Lots of cons. Lots of cons to them. Fatigue, hypotension, headache, dizziness, constipation, gallstones, in long-term use, loss of lean body tissue, and you regain 50% of the weight lost in 1 year once you go off the diet. So those are just terrible. The balanced low-calorie diet is a moderate reduction of calories, balancing, amongst the different categories, carbohydrate, lipid, and protein. Again, it's a hard one. Low adherence rates. Some programs require you to eat prepackaged foods like Weight Watchers. Jenny Craig and Nutrisystem, those will require you to purchase prepackaged foods. So again, you don't learn how to cook for yourself or how to balance or portion control and any of that stuff. You're just, paying them for their prepackaged foods, which again is expensive and not really sustainable. Low carb, high protein, high fat diets like the Atkins diet. Hunger is controlled and you do have some weight loss. But you have reduced glycogen, loss of lean body tissue, electrolyte imbalances, fatigues, headache, dizziness, constipation, nutritional deficiencies, stuff like that. Not great. A high carb, low fat diet, the opposite, the Ornish diet again. You can get weight loss, which is what people are going for, but there's low adherence rates, limited food options. You may have poor nutrient absorption due to low fat intake, especially for your fat soluble vitamins and fat soluble nutrients that we need fat in our diet for. And high fiber, excess high fiber will actually, the fiber can bind up a lot of those important nutrients and take them through your body in the form and lose them in the form of your feces. So those are some fad diets and some things to think about. So treating obesity, which again is a BMI over 40, would be extremely obese. A high risk of heart disease, stroke, and dying once your BMI is greater than 40. Stuff like this requires aggressive weight loss strategies, medications, very low calorie diets, and or surgery. And again, the very low calorie diet, we talked about that. That should be a short-term use and medically supervised because it does come with a lot of different risks. Surgery, gastric bypass or gastric banding or the sleeve gastrectomy, it results in higher levels of satiety and low levels of hunger. The stomach is much, much smaller, so it feels full and produces those full hormones that tell your body you're full, you're satiated. It can, I guess, result in dramatic weight loss, reduction of hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea. There are some small risks of complication and death from surgery. And then risk of deficiencies of certain vitamins and minerals. Liposuction is not a treatment for obesity, but it's a fat removed for cosmetic reasons. The fat can reappear. The results aren't permanent. It doesn't really do anything to fix your health or any of that kind of stuff. You can get infections and scarring and swelling and all kinds of bad stuff from like liposuction. So that's not really a way to treat obesity. It's to like try to smooth out the body and get rid of lumpy areas that might be bothersome to people. And then here's a look at our various different types of surgical interventions. There we go. Gastric bypass. They basically cut the stomach into a small piece or staple the stomach and then reroute the small intestine to bypass most of the stomach. In gastric banding, they put a silicone band around the top of the stomach to reduce its size and again, increase satiety and all of that. And then the sleeve gastrectomy, that's where they basically cut off most of the stomach with staples and leave one small tube going through the stomach from the esophagus to the small intestine. So a lot of these fad diets and stuff lead to what we call like yo-yo dieting or weight cycling, where you have these repeated periods of weight loss followed by weight gain, followed by going back on a diet, losing weight, getting off the diet, gaining the weight, and so forth. So really again, like I said, the key to maintaining a healthy weight over your lifetime is to exercise more, bring in fewer calories, and do some of those behavioral modifications and so forth. You just kind of have to do that and maintain it over your lifetime. It's really the only way to lose weight in a healthy manner and maintain a normal healthy weight throughout the rest of your life is to change your behavior pertaining to food. All right. So if you are underweight and you need to gain weight, again, for folks who are underweight, um, we don't want someone to do this in an unhealthy manner either. So if someone is underweight, it's pretty challenging to get them to gain weight in a healthy manner. You need to add about 500 calories daily to gain 1 pound per week. And this could be someone who has had severe weight loss due to something else due to maybe disordered eating or stress-related stuff or illness-related stuff where they've lost quite a lot of weight to get them back to a healthy weight, 500 calories per day. You want to choose more energy-dense foods, but foods that are nutritious. So, for your carbs, you want to have a waffle instead of toast. You want to have coleslaw instead of cabbage. And then snack a little bit more during the day to add some calories to the diet. All right, and this is our disordered eating section. So if this is a difficult subject for you, feel free to just sort of skip this part of the lecture and, hit the high notes on definitions and so forth. But disordered eating is abnormal and potentially harmful eating behavior that do not meet specific criteria for eating disorders. So that's disordered eating. And then eating disorders themselves are psychological illnesses that involve abnormal eating patterns and behaviors, plus other factors. It's estimated in the United States about 30 million people struggle with eating disorders at some point in their life. Most of them are young adolescent females, but rates are increasing among males across ethnic, racial, and gender identities. So eating disorders are becoming more common, not just in young females. As far as the different types that we're going to talk about, anorexia nervosa is a restriction of energy intake relative to energy expenditure, which leads to a significantly low body weight. They have an intense fear of gaining weight or becoming fat, disturbances in the way one's body weight or shape is experienced. So they have that sort of body dysmorphia type thing where they look at their body and think it's fat, see themselves as fat, and unworthy and so forth. So anorexia nervosa is a severe decrease in caloric intake and or a severe increase in like physical activity. Bulimia nervosa is characterized by cycles of binging and purging where you eat a lot in a short period of time. And then recurrent inappropriate compensatory behavior, so purging. And purging can be vomiting, taking laxatives and things like that to get rid of what you've just eaten. Then we have binge eating disorder, which has recurrent episodes of binge eating with the same characteristics as bulimia, but not followed by purging. So eating excessively without the purging part. There's ARFID, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, where it's kind of an anxiety about foods, and like a very sort of severe pickiness and anxiety about different types of food. So persistent failure to meet appropriate nutritional or energy needs, accompanied with weight loss, nutritional deficiencies, and then interference with psychosocial functioning. An over-reliance on nutritional supplements or enteral nutrition. So like using a G tube or an NG tube to get food in. There's OSFED, other specified feeding or eating disorders, and then there's atypical anorexia, nervosa, purging disorder, night eating syndrome. So atypical anorexia is anorexia except the weight is within or above the expected range. The recurrent purging behavior in the absence of binge eating is purging disorder, and then night eating is eating at night. All right. So what is disordered eating and what are the warning signs? There's no one single thing that causes an eating disorder. There's sociocultural stuff, societal pressure to be thin or like cut or, whatever. Genetic factors. People in families tend to have multiple families tend to have multiple people with eating disorders in them. And then psychological stuff, depression, anxiety, perfectionism, a sense of control. If you feel out of control everywhere else, the one thing you might be able to control is what you eat. So there's a sense of control over yourself by, limiting what you eat or whatever. All of this goes into, increasing risk for developing eating disorders. Okay, so we've kind of gone through some of this stuff already with the diagnostic criteria and so forth. What are the health consequences of anorexia nervosa, electrolyte imbalances, which can be fatal? Other things, decrease in heart rate, decrease in blood pressure. Lanugo is the development of soft, downy hair, loss of your regular hair, and then development of lanugo, and then osteoporosis. Bulimia nervosa. Some of the risks for that are vomiting can cause tears in the esophagus, swollen salivary glands, tooth decay, gum disease, broken blood vessels in the eyes, potentially fatal electrolyte imbalances, all of that kind of stuff. Binge eating disorder, remember, is compulsively overeating. Eating in secret, feelings of shame over food or eating. Health effects that are associated with obesity are part of binge eating disorder, because if you're binging, you're eating excess calories, which is going to lead to weight gain. So high blood pressure, cholesterol, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, gallbladder disease, all of those increase risk with binge eating disorder. All right, other eating disorders or disordered types of eating. ARFID, we've talked about that. Pica is a desire to consume non-nutritive substances, so eating like dirt or clay or chalk. Obviously, that can cause medical complications if you're eating non-food substances. It can cause, toxicity, and it can cause blockages in your digestive system and all kinds of things. OSFEDs, purging disorder we talked about, atypical anorexia. Orthorexia is an interesting type of OSFED, which is a fixation on eating the right types of food, so only eating healthy foods. It's like healthy or righteous eating. And then again, night eating syndrome we talked about. It's a combination of an eating, sleep, and mood disorder where you consume most of your calories after the evening meal. You might wake up at night and start eating. It's just dealing with eating at night. Body image is a big part of a lot of these eating disorders. Body image is the thought and feeling an individual has about their body, the attractiveness of their body. Certain strategies can help maintain a positive body image. So know and accept what determines your physical appearance. Understand that genetics, age, and whatever are going to change the way your body looks a little bit, and kind of be okay with that. Try to avoid comparing yourself to others. Recognize that you are a whole person, not just these individual parts that you might not be super thrilled with. And respect yourself. based on, especially yourself, but others too, based on the qualities of your character, your accomplishments, rather than your appearance. Like you're a whole person. It doesn't necessarily matter if you have, a little bit of, a belly or some love handles. Like you're more than your body. All right. Warning signs: hair loss, sudden weight changes. For bulimia, there's Russell's sign, which is scar tissue on the knuckles of the fingers that you use to induce vomiting. Um, People who avoid social situations where food is present, weighing yourself kind of obsessively or obsessively counting calories, and denying that there's a problem. All right, so here's a little chart on some of the warning signs again. We'll kind of skip through that because we just went over them. All right, so what's the treatment? Eating disorders can be treated. They kind of are a lifelong struggle, I think, for people, even if you've gotten everything under control in terms of your weight management. It can be a lifelong struggle for folks. There's always triggers that might lead you to think about the disordered eating again. So it's a multidisciplinary approach, and that's the most effective. So obviously there's a psychological aspect to it. So you want to get counseling. Medical and nutritional professionals help out to monitor your health and come up with a healthy eating plan for you. You want to identify your triggers for what's going on, and make meal plans so that you're able to kind of have some control over it, but make sure that you're doing so in a healthy manner. It's best treated in the early stages. There's no quick fix to it. And again, it can be a lifelong struggle for people who have had an eating disorder. There might be, events that happen in your life that kind of trigger thoughts of disordered eating again. All right, that is the end of our chapter. Like I said, exam 2 this week. Take a look at the assignment for the My Diet Analysis project. Chapter 10 homework is due, and there will be a discussion board assignment up there as well.